confident and self-assured.
And she was dating a much younger man.
She was 16 or 17 years older than him.
How they hooked up wasn't a mystery.
He was attracted to her looks.
She felt that she had a lot more energy than other people her age. She really felt that she needed somebody that age and that was perfect for her.
Who knows if it's like a cougar thing?
But the relationship would come to a gruesome end.
An anonymous caller indicated that there was a body.
He was past the initial stages of decomposition.
Was it all a horrible misunderstanding?
They knew it was some type of narcotic poisoning by overdose.
Or was it murder?
You've got this big man tied up in chains in a box.
December 14th, 2003. It was a tranquil Sunday evening when Coral Springs, Florida police pulled up outside the condo of a 43-year-old single mother named Martha Pineda.
It was very quiet complex. I don't remember having a lot of calls for service in there at all.
But on that particular Sunday, Coral Springs police had just received a disturbing call.
Coral Springs Prison Fire.
I want to report a dead body.
Where is it, sir?
The caller gave the address and immediately hung up the phone. How he knew there was a body, he didn't say.
There's a dead body, and that's the only information that was given.
It was a little before 8 p.m. when police knocked on the door of the unit indicated by the caller.
We attempted to make contact inside the residence. Looked like nobody was home, no response.
The front door was locked, but the sliding glass door to the balcony wasn't.
One of our officers was then hoisted over the railing and was able to climb into the residence.
A quick check of the condo revealed no one was at home. No one alive, at least.
One of the things we noticed was there was a very faint odor of decomposition.
A very faint smell. Wasn't sure if it was an animal or human body.
Was it a false alarm? Simply a dead mouse or a rat in the wall? Or was it something more sinister? In one of the bedrooms, the officers found a comforter tossed over what appeared to be a stack of boxes.
They pulled the comforter off, and they noticed a smaller box on top of a little larger box, which is on top of what was like a Rubbermaid container, a plastic container.
That wasn't all the officers noticed either.
The odor got a lot stronger at that point.
And the odor appeared to be coming from inside the plastic storage bin.
It was all duct tape shut. It was completely sealed. We kind of looked at each other saying, everything's pointing here.
I went to move it, expecting it to weigh, a significant amount, but not that much. It really caught me by surprise.
But the biggest surprise came when police lifted the lid.
For the first few seconds, I was actually kind of in shock, like, wow, there's actually a body inside this container.
He was bound. Chains were running around the neck, down to his arms, and down to his feet, and he was almost in a fetal position.
The patrol officers immediately secured the scene and called for backup.
It was pretty obvious to me it was some type of homicide.
But who was the dead man? How did he end up stashed away in the condo? And where was the woman who lived there? Martha Pineda was the very model of a successful single mother.
She had been an office manager at a psychiatrist's office. She did the books and she did administrative work.
She started off as an office assistant, just an employee in the office, and she was promoted to office manager.
But with one son grown and another in high school, Martha entered her 40s looking to take a little time for herself. She cut back her hours to part-time and pondered her next move.
She wanted to go from an office manager to do other things. She was exploring other opportunities in her life.
One promising opportunity turned up in January of 2003 when Martha noticed a new face at the gym where she worked out. A security guard named Ilya Nudmanov.
He was always into working out, always at the gym, very into his body.
Ilya apparently noticed Martha too.
He was attracted to her looks because she was
She was beautiful. She was a very pretty woman.
She was in shape, going to the gym regularly.
They kind of became friends, and then they started dating.
The couple had a lot in common. Not only were Martha and Ilya both regulars at the local gym, they lived in the same condo complex.
He was on the first floor, and she lived on the second floor.
There was one big difference between them, however.
She was older, significantly older than him. I believe she was 16 or 17 years older.
The fact that she was dating a much younger man wasn't a problem for Martha.
She felt that she thought young. She felt that she had a lot more energy than other people her age. She really felt that she needed somebody that age and that was perfect for her.
But the age difference would become an issue with Ilya's family.
They were a traditional family of Eastern European descent.
The first clash came on April 7th when Ilya finally introduced the family to his new girlfriend.
He had a little birthday thing for me at his apartment. We had dinner, and that's when we met her.
Ilya's sister wasn't all that pleased with news that her big brother was dating a woman old enough to be her mother.
I wasn't crazy about it, but nothing I can really say. I mean, he's a grown man. He's going to do what he wants.
Ilya's mother, on the other hand, said plenty.
I asked her, I said, what's going on? What kind of relationship you can have with him? He doesn't need a mother. I said, he already has a mother.
Martha didn't back down, however.
Her answer to me was, I love him, he loves me, he's gonna move in with me. I was besides myself. I was very upset, of course, but my son, he kind of cut me off saying, I'm 26 years old, I make my own decisions.
Their relationship was moving fast, which seemed to suit Martha.
The need to find a special person, if you haven't found it yet, becomes a greater priority in your 40s. Time seems to be ticking away a little bit quicker.
And once the couple moved in together, even Ilya's family had to admit that the arrangement suited him, too.
He seemed very happy. I mean, can't doubt that he was happy with her.
Ilya also became very attached to Martha's teenage son, who still lived at home.
He used to take him to the games. They used to, go to the movies together.
They'd hang out a lot on the weekends. They were friends.
The fact that Ilya and her son hung out only underscored the age difference between Martha and her boyfriend.
A young man who seeks out a woman who essentially is a comparable age to his mother is a very interesting dynamic. What is it he's looking for in that relationship?
Ilya would soon be asking himself the same thing. Once he'd moved in, the relationship between Ilya and Martha underwent a subtle change.
In some way, she felt sort of as a teacher to him.
And she soon helped her student land a new job.
He started working at the Medical Arts Center. He was a maintenance man, did all kinds of work around the building.
It was the same building where Martha worked.
He switched himself to that job, to be closer to her, I guess.
Martha made sure he stayed close, too.
Martha didn't like him using his phone too much. She didn't like if somebody else called him.
She was very controlling. She was controlling every move he made.
And after Ilya's car was stolen in September of 2003, his leash grew shorter.
The only time she would let him use the car to go to pick up her son from school. Shopping, they would have to go together. To the gym, they had to go together. She was very controlling.
She needed a special person in order to feel complete, in order for her to feel happy.
Ilya never complained, at least not until December 6th, his birthday. That evening, he and Martha met his mom and sister for dinner.
During the dinner, I kept looking at him. He looked very sad. He wasn't happy.
And when Martha excused herself to go to the restroom, Ilya told his mother why.
He says, I made my decision. He says, I'm going to move out.
Martha returned from the restroom before Ilya could go into more detail, however.
She came back and we just left it at that. And he was going to pack up and move back in with us.
The next day, Ilya's mother left her son a voicemail asking if he needed help moving.
He never called me back. From that point on, I didn't hear from him.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and after that she said she hasn't heard from him. And we were getting worried.
By Saturday, Paulina Nudmanov had become so worried that she dropped by the condo her son shared with Martha.
Martha opened the door, crying, swollen eyes. I said to her, what's happening? I said, where's Ilya?
Martha Pineda told her that he had left.
Where he was now, Martha didn't say. She told Paulina that Ilya had packed up a few things and left with a friend. Then she shut the door in Paulina's face.
She says, my brother is here. I'm very upset. If I find out anything, I'll give you a call.
Paulina wasn't about to wait on Martha, however. Minutes after Martha closed the condo door, Ilya's mother started making calls.
We decided to start calling every hospital here in South Florida to see. You know, you never know. Nothing happened.
She also contacted the police.
At that time, Ilya was reported as a missing person.
At 7:50 p.m. the following Sunday, someone else was knocking on Martha's door. This time, it was Coral Springs police officers responding to an anonymous phone call.
Coral Springs Prison Fire?
Yeah, Detective Division, please.
What do you need specifically? Because I don't think anybody's here tonight.
Okay, I want to report a dead body.
Where is it, sir?
651 Riverside Drive, apartment 6.
Upon arrival, we attempted to make contact inside the residence. Looked like nobody was home, no response.
The officers managed to get into the apartment through an open sliding glass door. After a quick check, they began to suspect the call was just a prank.
We checked the apartment once, very thoroughly. Didn't see anything out of the ordinary until we did a secondary search.
And that's when they found the storage bin in the back bedroom.
We kind of looked at each other saying, you know, everything's pointing here, but we'd still be shocked if there was a body in there.
Coming up, the police locate Ilya.
He was actually naked. He had no clothes on him at all.
But where is Martha? Sunday, December 14th. It was a little after 8 p.m. when Coral Springs homicide investigators arrived at the South Florida condo of Martha Pineda. Minutes earlier, patrol officers responding to a call had discovered a dead body inside one of the condo bedrooms.
Coral Springs Police Department received a phone call from an anonymous caller who stated that there was a body at a residence at the villas of Riverside.
And the dead man had apparently been there for some time.
He was past the initial stages of decomposition, but he wasn't fully decomposed.
A decomposing body in a quiet middle-class condo was unusual enough. But this particular body had also been wrapped in chains and crammed into a plastic storage container.
He was a pretty large man. He was pretty tall. So they pretty much stuffed him in there.
The chain was wrapped around his neck, his hands, and around his legs and kind of pulled him into a real fetal type position.
But who was he? There was no ID on the body.
He was actually naked. He had no clothes on him at all.
As for what killed him, the body in the storage bin didn't show any signs of being stabbed or shot.
Observing the body, it's possible that there could have been some blunt trauma to the head.
You could see the discoloration to his head and a little bit of blood, but we were really unsure at that point.
And police couldn't rule out an overdose either.
There was numerous pill bottles in the kitchen cabinet, mainly empty ones.
But no matter how the man died, someone else had obviously been involved.
And someone took a good amount of time to wrap the chains around him, to bound him tight, and to get him in that container.
That evening, while the medical examiner's crew transported the body to the morgue, the detectives started knocking on doors around the complex.
The neighbors informed us that Martha Pineda resided at that location, along with Ilya Nudmanov and Martha's teenage son.
The dead man more or less matched the neighbor's description of Ilya, Martha's live-in boyfriend. A quick check of police records also revealed that Ilya's mother had just reported him missing.
I got the phone call from Cold Spring Police Department saying something happening in that apartment.
And when she came down to the station, what Paulina told police about her son's impending breakup struck them as a plausible scenario for murder.
He's gonna leave. She didn't want him to leave. She wanted him to herself and herself only.
Was Ilya's death the revenge of a scorned lover? Only Martha knew the answer, and she was nowhere to be found.
She disappeared that day when I showed up to the apartment.
By Monday morning, police were focusing their efforts on finding the missing woman. Although Detective Nicholas Ioricchio did make a quick visit to the nearest Home Depot, he had a hunch about the padlocks found with the victim's body.
I was under the impression that they were a brand specific to Home Depot.
Browsing the aisles, Detective Ioricchio confirmed that the padlocks could have been purchased there.
Home Depot did sell the locks, the chain, and the blue tub.
Meanwhile, hoping for more information on Martha's whereabouts, the investigators had gotten in touch with her two brothers who lived in Miami. The interview with her youngest brother, Luis, was brief.
He told me that he was made aware of the death of Ilya Nudmanov. However, any further questions regarding that situation, I needed to refer to his attorney.
Martha's older brother, Emilio, agreed to give police a statement, however. And when he met with detectives, he told them that his sister had called on Wednesday afternoon and asked him to come by the condo. And she said it was urgent.
So what did your sister tell you that she needed to talk to you about that was so urgent?
She told me she needed help.
Emilio told detectives he'd arrived to find Martha distraught and the place a mess.
Was Ilya there?
I didn't see him.
Did you know what happened to him?
No. I know what happened to him.
Was it the truth, or was Emilio hiding something?
Is there any reason at all why you would be on videotape purchasing items at Home Depot this weekend?
There was no tape, at least not one the detectives had seen. But the bluff obviously had an effect on Emilio.
His demeanor totally changed. He almost went white.
In the interview, Emilio admitted that he and his brother had bought Martha a plastic storage bin 4 days earlier, on Thursday. But he claimed they didn't know why she needed it.
She said she was rearranging, putting stuff away. I guess she was going to paint.
Frustrated, the detectives pressed further, putting Emilio on notice that he might face accessory charges.
I don't believe that you're being truthful to us. So at this point, I need to read you your Miranda rights.
At that point, he asked for a lawyer.
After consulting with his attorney, Emilio told the detectives that while Martha hadn't told him she killed Ilya, she had told someone else. According to Emilio, the bombshell had come on Saturday. He said that he had dropped back by the condo that afternoon because Martha had asked him to meet with her and a Dr. Ethan Cass.
That's my sister's psychiatrist.
And it was Cass that Martha confessed to, according to her brother.
I was on this side of the table. She sat here and he sat here. She said, "Doctor, I'm sick. I need your help. I took someone's life."
But according to Emilio, that was all that he knew.
I stood up. I walked out the door and he said, "Don't tell me anything else."
So you didn't overhear her say how she took his life?
No.
Emilio said he had waited outside the door until Dr. Cass left a few minutes later. On the way out, the psychiatrist had apparently offered Emilio the name of an attorney and a little advice.
He just said to me, just take her somewhere where she's safe, where she's not going to do anything.
According to Emilio, he had done what he was told.
I just took her home just to, make sure that she was not alone and that she wasn't stupid. And she kept telling me, "I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to kill myself. I just know that I ruined everybody's life." But that was it.
Emilio told police that Martha was staying at his house, and since he had said nothing to implicate himself, the detectives let Emilio go, for the moment. They made sure he knew that he could be arrested as an accessory if his story didn't check out. Next, the investigators returned to Home Depot and checked the security tape. The tape clearly showed two men buying a plastic bin identical to the one holding Ilya's body.
Looking at the video, you could clearly see that those two individuals looked similar to Martha Pineda's brothers.
By then, police had also located Martha at Emilio's house in Miami, but they decided not to bring her in for questioning just yet.
They were watching her. They knew where she was, but they just had to formulate their cause to get an arrest warrant.
And when it came to making an arrest, the authorities had cause for concern. Ilya's autopsy came back on the same day detectives questioned her brother. And the results made the case against Martha look a little shaky.
Initially, the road patrol officers, had thought that he had some severe head trauma.
But according to the medical examiner, the discoloration officers had observed at the scene wasn't bruising due to trauma.
It turned out to be, it was just, decomposition.
At that point, it was an issue of naturally what caused the death of Ilya Nudmanov, and it was reverted to toxicology.
The tox screen found massive amounts of alprazolam in Ilya's system, an antidepressant more commonly known by the brand name Xanax.
Medical examiner determined cause of death to be an overdose.
Two questions remained, however. How did Ilya wind up stuffed into the storage bin? And how did the drugs get into his system?
We weren't aware of any illegal drug use, narcotic use that Ilya was involved with.
Hoping for answers, police started asking questions around the medical complex where Martha and Ilya worked.
A few people that knew Ilya very well had said there were occasions where, they did see him take pills.
Martha's co-workers told a similar story. Taken together, they threatened to unravel the entire murder investigation.
Martha was telling friends and co-workers that he'd been raiding her prescription drugs.
Martha had told people she was having a problem keeping her prescriptions in the home because Ilya was stealing them.
Coming up, a new witness sheds light on Ilya's final hours.
He seemed a little out of sorts, perhaps high.
He was staggering. He could barely walk.
December 16, 2004. Barely 48 hours after Florida police found the body of Ilya Nudmanov, they were convinced that Ilya's death was a homicide. They also had a prime suspect, his live-in girlfriend, Martha Pineda.
It was not just one single piece of evidence, but all the different circumstances.
Not only had Ilya's body been found wrapped in chains and stuffed inside a storage bin in Martha's apartment, his mother had told police that he had planned to leave Martha.
The strength of their case was that Ilya and Martha had a rocky relationship toward the end of Ilya's life, that he was threatening to leave.
So why wasn't Martha under arrest? The answer had to do with Ilya's autopsy. At the scene, police had observed what they thought were clear signs of blunt trauma to Ilya's head. But the medical examiner had determined that wasn't the case.
Decomposition had given the appearance of the trauma.
What the autopsy did find put the detectives in a dilemma. The toxicology test showed that Ilya died from an overdose of Xanax.
It can be overdose, and especially as contraindicated for using alcohol.
Or had Martha somehow poisoned her lover and then hidden his body inside the storage bin? The police had reason to believe that was the case. First, according to her brother Emilio, Martha had told her psychiatrist that she had taken a life. Second, she had obviously taken steps to conceal the body or even dispose of it.
It was pretty obvious that the body was going to be dumped somewhere with the way it was chained up.
There are numerous waterways down here in Florida. There's canals, there's the oceans.
Detectives questioned her psychiatrist, Dr. Ethan Cass, that afternoon. In an audio-taped interview, he started by confirming Emilio's account. Dr. Cass told police he'd met with Martha and her brother at the condo that Saturday.
I entered the home, and she told me something that was surprising.
According to her brother Emilio, Martha had told Dr. Cass she had taken a life, but the psychiatrist's account contained a subtle difference.
She said Elio is dead.
But had Martha confessed to killing him? According to Dr. Cass, he hadn't given her the chance.
What I said to her was, do me a favor, do not, I repeat, do not say anything to me about the circumstances surrounding it. Don't say anything to anybody. Is this a situation where you're ultimately going to need an attorney? And she said, yeah.
So who was telling the truth? Emilio or Dr. Cass? Even with the disparities, the two versions of events were enough alike to convince police that Martha had killed Ilya. But before they could arrest her for the murder, they still needed to figure out how she had done it, an answer the autopsy couldn't provide.
They knew it was some type of overdose. By the amount in the system, they couldn't tell how it got there.
Questioning Martha's teenage son did offer an intriguing possibility, however. He told the detectives he and Ilya had spent the evening of December 10th, 2000. And it was evidence the defense would definitely have to address. The prosecution started its case by calling crime scene technician Michelle Martin to the stand. She walked jurors through the chilling photographs of Ilya's bound body in the storage container.
The body spoke for everything, and that's what pretty much told the story.
I closely watched the jurors as they looked at those photos, and they all seemed to react or try to hold back a reaction, just a grimace or a shudder, or closing their eyes and passing them along.
And according to the state, the story those pictures told didn't in any way suggest an accident or a suicide.
She was making active attempts to cover up what had happened.
Next, prosecutors put the medical examiner on the stand to explain exactly how Ilya had died.
The state's case was that she had given her lover a lethal dose of the antidepressant Xanax.
On cross, Martha's attorney didn't deny that Ilya had died of an overdose, but he did try to raise doubt over just how the drugs got into Ilya's system.
There were other factors about the relationship, whether or not Ilya was pilfering some of her medications.
But if Ilya had taken the Xanax intentionally, why would Martha confess to her psychiatrist and her brothers? All three took the stand for the prosecution.
The worst part of the case was the fact that some of the main witnesses against her were her two brothers, her psychiatrist, and they testified that she had made statements that she had killed Ilya.
Originally, Dr. Cass had told police that Martha had only told him Ilya was dead. He claimed he had stopped her before she could tell him anything that might be incriminating. But now, compelled by a subpoena, he added a new detail to his original account.
He states at trial that she said, "I killed Ilya."
Cross-examining Dr. Cass, the defense tried to control the damage by drawing the jury's attention to Martha's fragile mental state at the time of Ilya's death.
She was under psychiatric care. She was being prescribed numerous amounts of drugs, and there was an effect of the drugs. And I'll leave it at that.
The defense's argument was that Martha was so strung out on prescription medications, especially in the week before Ilya's death, that she was delusional.
Could Martha have been delusional enough to assume she had killed Ilya, even if that wasn't the case? The defense certainly raised that possibility during cross-examination.
At that moment, she was so overcome with emotion, so overcome with a sense of loss, that she wasn't thinking clearly.
But what about stuffing her lover's body into a storage container? According to the defense, the gruesome act was further evidence of Martha's irrational response to Ilya's death.
It didn't seem like a very carefully thought out plan. If you don't know how you're going to get rid of the body, that's not a good thought out plan.
And that's assuming there was a plan in the first place, which the defense denied. But the prosecutors had one more witness left. In the trial's most emotionally charged moment, Martha's youngest son took the stand.
His son, a 20-year-old boy or a 19-year-old boy, testifying against his mother, to see the mother crying, the boy crying, the jury crying.
Between tears, Martha's son described the last night he'd seen Ilya alive, December 10, 2003.
Her youngest son had been playing video games with Ilya.
But according to the son's testimony, Ilya had become more and more disoriented as the night wore on. And the prosecution had a theory as to why. While her son and boyfriend played, Martha kept them well supplied with snacks and drinks. Although according to the prosecutors, Ilya's snacks contained a little something extra.
That food and those drinks were laced with prescription medications.
Martha's son may have remembered her bringing Ilya snacks and drinks, but did that really rule out the possibility that Ilya had taken the pills himself? Not necessarily, according to the defense. On cross, Martha's son admitted that he never saw his mother put the drugs in the food.
They couldn't establish the felonious cause of death, I didn't think. At least the methodology of it, to say that the amount of narcotics in his system could not have been voluntarily ingested.
The state couldn't prove that she had intended to kill Ilya.
And with the entire case hinging on the question of intent, the defense figured they had only one option when they started presenting their case on March 14th.
The only witness that could really testify would be Martha. There was nobody else, and there was almost no choice but to put her on to attempt to counter some of what the state had argued.
That afternoon, Martha took the stand in her own defense.
The hope was that the jury would see through her own words that she was not this vicious, calculating, intentful killer.
She certainly didn't look like one on the stand.
She came across as somewhat humble and vulnerable.
But just as she appeared to be winning the jury's sympathy, a series of pointed questions by the prosecution put Martha back on the defensive.
She got tripped up somewhat. She got caught up on cross-examination.
She unfortunately was a little defensive and not exactly the best witness.
On March 16, 2007, the jury announced that it had reached a verdict in the murder trial of 47-year-old Martha Pineda. She was accused of killing her 27-year-old boyfriend, Ilya Nudmanov.
Older woman, younger man, man threatens to leave, a woman is desperate, woman kills young man. That was the state's argument.
But could the state's argument also become their case's undoing?
Based upon the facts, I thought that she could at least get a manslaughter.
It all depended on whether jurors would take pity on Martha's plight.
People who kill out of passion, juries can connect with that. We've all had that roller coaster of emotions when special relationships have broken up.
The chaos of the moment, her psychological state, the fact that she's being medicated, the disruption in this relationship she's having, all of that came to a head on that day.
And as the foreperson rose to read the verdict, the case against Martha likewise came to a head. The jury found her guilty of first-degree murder.
Ilya's mother was crying. Martha's family was very upset. Emilio, the brother, was crying. The boys were there. Mrs. Nudmanov went over and hugged the kids. It was a very emotional moment.
And the woman whose out-of-control emotions had triggered it all?
Her reaction was really kind of stunning, calm, silent.
She even didn't cry. Her sons were crying that day. She did not cry.
She'd almost accepted or resigned herself to this.
2 days later, the judge sentenced Martha to life in prison.
In Florida, a first-degree murder conviction is a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole.
She fully deserves to be there, according to Ilya's sister.
I know it's a strong word. I hate her. I think she took away someone very special from me.
And in a bitter irony, it was the sting of losing Ilya that drove Martha to murder in the first place.
Love makes people do some really, really crazy things. And apparently this is the result of it. And the bottom line is this: nobody should die for love.